So I promised in my last video I'd do a meet the artist kind of deal, and since I panic procrastinated on my latest video idea to the point that I'm postponing it indefinitely, sorry Desire, I figured I'd finally get around to it. I've only got like 4 days to make this video, so I'm gonna keep things as simple and straightforward as possible. This won't be one of my fancy animatics or animations, and this certainly won't be a detailed draw my life style video. So without further ado, let's get started. I was born the youngest of twin daughters in 1995, by 2 minutes, if you must know. Since we were a military family, I didn't stay long in my birth state of Maryland before moving to Nebraska. Eventually, I got a younger brother, and then we were stationed in Las Vegas. You know, a family-friendly city. At the time, the Vegas education system was so bad you had to share textbooks with students. So while my dad was out in the desert, my mom took it upon herself to homeschool us children for purely secular reasons. While I'd always been doodling beforehand, it was during this 4-year stint in Vegas, that I really started developing a love for drawing and painting. If I wasn't hiking the canyons with my family, or making a city in the desert backyard with my friends, I was drawing. And eventually I developed a habit of creating comics. They had no comprehensible storylines, or even good jokes for that matter, but they were fun. I managed to create 40 full issues of my childhood comic before I stopped. Anyway, my dad finally retires, and we decide to head back to Nebraska. It takes a couple houses and several years later, but we finally end up settling in a nice neighborhood near Omaha. Which brings us to present day. I'm still living at home, I'll admit that. I'm much older and a little more worn out than I was before. But now I'm a grown adult with more agency and more capability, and I'm on my way to try and make a life in which my art sustains me completely. Growing up in a desert environment that wasn't catered to children or families, I learned from a very early age to pick up influences from anywhere and everywhere. It was like looking out for the quartz crystals among the sandstones, or as I like to call it, looking for the gold among the trash. I looked out for anything that interested me, whether it was good or bad. Even ads in National Geographic magazines could be a source of inspiration. Music has been one of the constant inspirations throughout my life. From my mom's 70s music, almost exclusively ABBA, to symphonic metal, it's colored my attitudes, and I wanted to color my art more than it does now. I'm pretty open to most genres, except country. There's only like 1 or 2 artists from that genre I can stand. On Saturday mornings in Vegas, sometimes we'd watch Bob Ross or other kinds of arts and crafts shows, and then I'd immediately rush over to the table and try to make creations of my own. My siblings and I devoured comics like Calvin and Hobbes and Garfield, which I tried emulating in my own comics. My twin and I were quite avid readers too, taking our hobby of reading books with us back to Nebraska, which then turned us on to writing, though admittedly we had started dabbling in writing back in Vegas. In Vegas, my mom used to teach piano lessons, and she'd put on VHS movies from the library to keep us kids quiet during lessons. From Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake to VeggieTales, good God. We watched anything that was considered family friendly, or at least seemed like it was, but that's another story for later. I was also inspired by the environment around me, or the environment I wished I could be in. My dad maintained a lush garden in the background, and lots of birds would gather. We even had quail show up on occasion. My favorite parts of the desert were lakes, hidden streams surrounded by greenery, and forests, so I drew those more than the sandy plains or brown mountains. Once I started sitting in on my brother's gaming sessions, video games would soon become one of the biggest new influences of my life. The first one that opened my eyes to that world was the first Portal game, and from then on, it's just been a constant flood of checking out one game after the other ever since. He and I have been gaming together, and soon I'll finally do more gaming on my own. Let me know if gaming content would be something anyone here would be interested in. Once I realized that animation was something you could do, I started paying more attention to old and new favorites. Disney's Sleeping Beauty was one of my favorite animated films as a child, and as a young adult, the animated film that got me thinking about animation seriously was DreamWorks' Rise of the Guardians. Since then, I've been digesting as much animation as possible, from BoJack Horseman to Mystery of Mama. Oh, and because movies and TV are an obvious influence, here's some of them here. One of the newer influences has been manga and anime. It took a while to find something I wanted to stick with, because fan service and problematic content. But I've slowly started finding some stories I enjoy, even if some of them still have some elements I have to sit through. I saw Death Note for the first time in 2016, and while I enjoyed it thoroughly, I wasn't really interested in exploring anything else at the time. I can safely point to the 2020 pandemic as the true start of my dive into anime and manga with Lupin III. I've already consumed more manga and anime this month than the last 3 years combined. I suppose the last thing I could mention before ending this video is what kind of stuff I like to draw in general. To a certain extent, that is still something I'm figuring out, but I'll tell you what I do love drawing for sure. I like drawing people. I way prefer drawing people over animals, though I do want to get better at those. I like drawing stories and narrative content, and if not full stories, then scenes that feel like they're part of a story. I like working typically with warmer colors. I tend to get clumsy with blues and purples. I didn't used to like drawing backgrounds, but I'm starting to enjoy them even more now. I really like the fairy tale aspect of the fantasy genre, and I want to incorporate more horror and action into my art. Anything that allows me to play with acting and mood is the best. And when it comes to art that's more like Redbubble designs, I like playing around with interesting combinations or subjects with an air of the fantastical. You want to know what I don't like drawing? Guns. Which is pretty ironic considering the Left 4 Dead series I just wrapped up last year. But you know, I don't think it shows that much. Anyways, I think that's enough for this video. If you draw, what are your influences and what do you like drawing? And if not, what are your favorite kinds of art and media to consume? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed learning a little more about me. I'm really excited to make more consistent art and videos this year, and I can't wait to share all of it with you. That's all for now. ArtzDeeva over and out.